Today's guest, Jackie Boo, has spent her career helping women find their voice at work. She works with women who are brilliant at what they do, but feel like they are holding back. Women who are told they are too much one day and not enough the next. Jackie started out as a nurse in palliative care. She led teams, she managed services. She saw close up what happens when people are under constant pressure and when leaders don't have the support they need. Now she coaches women in leadership. Many of them work in the NHS and other demanding environments. They come to her because they are tired of doubting themselves, tired of saying yes to everything, tired of feeling invisible in rooms they are more than qualified to be in. Secondly, leadership is not about pretending to be confident all the time. It is about being honest, setting boundaries, saying no without apologizing for it, bringing who you really are into how you lead. She runs programs and coaching for midlife women who are done shrinking and ready to step up. Her work is about helping them speak up in meetings, own their achievements, and create careers that feel aligned instead of draining. I am Bill, mentor at Mentors for Women. Today, I am speaking with Jackie Booth, also a mentor here with us. She's a women's leadership coach, a former nurse, and the woman who believes midlife is not the end of your leadership story. It is the start of a new chapter. If you ever felt like you're working hard but acting small, this conversation is for you. Jackie, you work a lot with midlife women who feel they have been playing small for a long time. What drew you to working with this stage of life and leadership?
Thank you. And thank you so much for that wonderful intro. It's good to hear things that you've done. So, yeah, what drew me to this work was quite a long road, but actually it was how familiar it felt. So many of the women that I work with, as you say, are capable, experienced, respected, and yet they're questioning themselves. That sense of, I've done everything I was supposed to, so why does something feel off? You know, I've lived that. And it's not because I wasn't lacking ambition. That has never gone away. But midlife has almost become that moment, that part where playing small stops working. And once you see that in yourself, you can't unsee it in others. So let me give you an example. I was recently in a contract review meeting with a large organisation I've been delivering coaching and mentoring to their senior leaders for quite a number of years. The work had gone really well, strong feedback, real impact, great people. I loved it. But this year they were hesitating for a variety of reasons about extending for another year. And what surprised me wasn't their uncertainty, it was mine. I realised I didn't actually care whether they renewed. I did care, but I was, okay, I can deal with this, because although I loved the work, I wanted more depth, more honesty, more transformation. And that for me was a real big wake-up call, because even though nothing was wrong, something wasn't quite right anymore. And that mirrors what so many women tell me, that midlife is often where the identity that you've lived with for so many years of being capable, agreeable, reliable, starts to feel constraining, starts to feel too tight. And I was drawn to this because I could see women blaming themselves for what was actually a bigger shift wanting to happen.
You often talk about women shrinking at work. What does that look like in everyday behavior?
It shows up in a lot of ways. And shrinking is actually the gap between what you're thinking and what you say out loud. And I can spot that because I've done it myself so many times. So early in my leadership career, when I left nursing, not healthcare, but left nursing, the clinical field, I'd be in meetings and I'd have a clear view. I'd prepared, I knew what I'd want to say, I knew where we were going, what we wanted to achieve. But I'd wait, I'd tell myself, oh, let's see where this goes. You don't know everything, you're not sure. And then someone in the room would say exactly what I was thinking. And I'd then leave the meeting annoyed with myself that I'd not said anything. So it's that sort of thing. But it's also, I'd over prepare, but I wouldn't claim my work or the impact that it was having. I would automatically say yes if somebody wanted something, even if it took time away from what I was doing. And then I'd quietly resent it later. I'd be in the car on the way home fuming. Or I'd edit myself so I didn't sound too much. And that's not about confidence. It's about you learn the caution. And mine came from my home life. So I grew up in a household where approval came through performance, being useful, capable, not demanding. I was told repeatedly to be seen and not heard. Wanting anything was seen as selfish or greedy. Independence was a bit risky, and emotional safety just wasn't there for me. So that experience for me, I learned to need less, to stay quiet, to prove myself. And that belief, it never disappeared as I got older until a lot more recently. It got rewarded. So that kind of proving and being competent, reliable and high performer, that's what I became. And from the outside, everything then looked successful. But later in life, something shifts. That part of you that learned to shrink for safety or because of social conditioning or whatever starts bumping up against the woman that you've become, this experienced, powerful, capable, competent woman whose future self wants more expansiveness, more choice, more depth. And that kind of tension creates this feeling of, I'm scared, I'll never quite get there. But I realise that's not you failing, that's you growing. It means you've outgrown the identity that got you here. And that's what I do with, it's kind of the heart of the coaching and mentoring I do, called Reclaim. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about recognising you no longer need those same rules you lived by when you were younger. You can take up space. You're allowed to take up space, to need support, to want more without justifying it.
You started your career in nursing and palliative care, then moved into leadership and later into coaching. What did those early experiences teach you about what good leadership really is?
Two main things. And I'd got a long think about this, because although I didn't enjoy nursing for a long time, when I look back, it taught me so much. And when it comes to leadership, it taught me that leadership's not about status or authority. It's about how people feel when they're with you, especially, when you're delivering healthcare, when you're under pressure, when you're in difficult situations. People feel safe, they trust you. And in palliative care especially, people don't need perfection. They want honesty, calm, compassion. And the other reason was that I experienced really, really poor leadership early on. As soon as even as a nurse, I had some terrible, terrible managers. And then when I went into nurse management and project management, so I had leaders who led through fear or control, who treated you or treated all people as resources rather than human, who tried to kind of bully you to their way of thinking. And that showed me how damaging leadership can be when it's really led and driven by insecurity. Because if you're leading from that place, people feel it. But when people feel safe, they perform better, not worse. And I wanted to do better than I'd experienced. And for me, leadership was about good leadership starts with knowing who you are, which is always a really good place to start.
Many of the women you work with struggle saying no. From your perspective, Jackie, why is no so hard?
From my experience, it's because it feels risky. It goes against, it threatens you being liked or trusted or relied upon. A lot of us have an element of wanting to please others. So we say yes automatically. And I used to do it, to projects, expectations, emotional labour, which is a whole other topic that women get involved in delivering and supporting and helping with. But what really helped with me, and certainly as I moved into my coach certification, was that for every yes that I didn't choose consciously or I pleased somebody else was a no for something that I considered important, something like my energy or my values. So saying no then wasn't about being difficult. It was about being honest. And then the learning is saying no without over explaining, just a simple just a simple no, because you shouldn't be managing other people's expectations. You should be getting clear on your own. And that clarity really changes how others treat you, because you're more boundaried, you're clear of your expectations of yourself and others, you're more self-assured and confident. And it's an absolute game changer.
So what changes when women learn to say no with confidence without explaining or apologizing for it?
It demonstrates that they're very boundaried, that they're very clear on what it is that they want, and they're clear on who they are. And this is what I was saying before about that identity piece. They don't feel that they've got to justify themselves or apologize for themselves or self-edit or over-explain. They can just say, no, that's not going to work for me now. I'm not saying be mean and unkind about it, but you could point them to somebody else, or you could say, I can't do it today. I could do it tomorrow. I used to have an open door policy, and I was always working late because the door had been open. People had come in, they got their work done and gone home, and I was still getting mine done. So it protects your time and your energy as well.
You support a lot of women working in systems like NHS, where demands are huge and resources are tight. How can women lead well in environments that are already stretched?
It's a really good question. It's a really good question. And because I've worked in or alongside the NHS for over 30 years, actually over 30 years, since I was a student nurse, that's more than 30 years, I'm really honest about this. It's not that women themselves that work in the NHS don't know the system that they're working with, but you can't single-handedly fix a system like the NHS. You can only lead yourself within it. And leading well in a stretch system, whether it is the NHS or anywhere else, again, comes down to clarity. What's yours to carry and what isn't? What I see too often, and what I've done myself, is that you cope, women especially, by giving more of yourself. The example I've just said about me staying late because I wanted to get my work done, but I was supporting my team first, which isn't a bad thing, but that's not sustainable. It's kind of leading well is very much about knowing your limits of what you can and you can't do. As I said, what's yours to carry and what isn't. Naming the reality of what can be done, prioritising, and refusing to sacrifice yourself as the solution. Because if I am going to be honest about this, you don't have to burn yourself out just to prove that you care. It's not going to help anybody.
You help women bring their whole selves into leadership instead of trying to fit a narrow mold. What does leading as yourself actually look like in practice?
This is something I didn't realise until much later. I mean, certainly me doing my coach certification was a real eye-opener, and it's something that helped with women now. Leading yourself means leading from your values, your voice and your behaviour, and making sure that they're all aligned. So you're being true to yourself, authentic, which is overused, but it's very true in this case. So even if you're under pressure, you're not lowering your standards of what you are and how you show up. And it means you stop performing leadership of what you think it should be, what other people are demonstrating. I had poor leadership, so I was like, no, I'm not doing that. And you start embodying leadership that fits and works for you. For me, that looked like speaking more plainly, which was never difficult because as a nurse, for the majority of my nursing career, after I trained and qualified, I looked after people who are approaching the end of their life. So they want plain, honest, straightforward speaking, obviously couched in compassion and care, but it's very much about translating that into then a leadership place where you're managing teams and managing your boss's expectations and your projects and everything. But I stopped myself from cushioning everything I said. And I was a lot more plain about things. And people trust you. They trust leaders who are consistent, who are human and clear and not perfect. I mean, one of the strongest female leaders and role models who's always inspired me is Jacinda Ardern. I've always thought she was a great example of a leader who's genuine. She's empathetic, compassionate, and she's a genuine style of communicator, especially during times of crisis, which we did see when she was the Premier in New Zealand. Her leadership style shows that it's possible to lead with heart and to have a significant and positive impact, no matter your role. And she didn't succeed despite being a woman. She succeeded because of it. She brought all of the really great stuff to her leadership. And I really admire, and I still admire her.
For women in midlife who feel it's too late to make a bold change, to go for a promotion or a switch path or step into leadership, what would you say?
Oh, I hear this all the time. I've left it too late. I hear this all the time. I've left it too late. And I've thought it myself many times, especially with what I call ROMO, that kind of regret of missing out. But what holds women back isn't their age. It's belief that they still need permission, really, to do something for themselves that they really want. I mean, I certified as a coach in my mid-40s, and I was so worried that I was too late. But, looking back, of course I wasn't, because I wouldn't have been ready earlier. Midlife brought that depth, experience, and self-awareness that I really needed. Everything that I'd lived and learned, they became the foundation for me as a coach. And you're not starting from scratch, whether you go for a promotion, whether you make a change, even if you just follow a passion project that you've wanted to do, and say you want to write a book or learn something new, you're not starting from scratch. You're starting with all that wisdom and knowledge you've already gained. And that's a very different place, because there comes a time, and I think it's in midlife, when you realize you stop proving your worth. You can stop proving your worth, and you start choosing what you want.
When you mentor women, what themes come up again? You have mentioned few, but are there some other themes that you could share?
Yeah. And especially if one of my programs is a group mentoring program. But actually it's the same. What I'm going to say is the same, I think, with one-to-one mentoring, one-to-one coaching, training, anywhere. And that's when women feel safe. The conversations go deep very, very quickly. So you create that kind of safe, emotional container, whatever that looks like, then things will come up. So they talk about things like exhaustion, invisibility, fear of becoming irrelevant. And I see, comes back to the regret piece, there's a lot of quiet grief for parts of themselves that they've lost. When you get to this age, you look back at yourself in your 20s and 30s and 40s, and you think that time is gone, and you feel sad for that. You feel sad about not having that energy sometimes. Menopause can be a bit of a fist to the solar plexus, frankly, but you also kind of feel grief for some of the paths you didn't take, some of the people that have left your life, versions of yourself that you've outgrown. And that sometimes you kind of can't put a finger on it, because you think, well, I'm ready for more, but I don't quite know what that looks like. And in the safe container, women stop looking for strategies and tips and things like that. They start talking about their identity, who they are beyond the roles that they do, beyond the responsibilities that they have and the performance that's expected of them. They ask identity questions like, who am I now? What do I want next? And that's the conversation that they've been waiting to have, because that honesty is where the transformation begins, because they're not asking to be fixed. They don't need to be fixed. They're asking to be seen. They want to reclaim what they've been missing. And I don't coach and mentor women because they're lacking. I do it because that transition is so hard to navigate alone.
We're talking about transformations and transitions and reclaiming, but what will be one small practical thing a woman could do this week to feel more confident and visible in her role?
Okay. There's a lot I could say. But what actually came to mind was stop over explaining. Just state your view once, let it land. It's a really small shift, but it sends a powerful message to yourself and to others that your voice doesn't need justification. It's absolutely perfect as it is.
Love it. It is simple, but powerful. And you can do it consistently.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not easy to start because you just want to, and what about, and you just have to say, no, it's a bit like receiving compliments. You know, when people say things about us, we say, oh, well, that's great, but we excuse it. Like, say, somebody says, you look really nice. You say, oh, this old dress. Instead of saying, thank you, that's really great. I appreciate you mentioning that. That's made me feel good. Thank you. Saying thank you and not saying anything else so hard. And it's the same with don't over explain. Just say what you want to say and let it land.
Yes, it is simple, but not easy. So also be kind towards yourself. So when you notice that you are actually doing it again, so you just kind to yourself. That's simple, but not always easy.
Yeah, that's so true. Yes.
Thank you for that. Jackie, is there anything I should have asked you but didn't?
I suppose kind of what has been really helpful for me in midlife, and I'm still a work in progress, which is good because I'm curious about others, I'm curious about myself, but I think for me it's been about what do I need to unlearn to lead well. And I don't just mean lead others, but to lead myself. I mean, women are leading themselves every day with the way that they're kind of managing their homes, raising their children, looking after their partners, their parents, their children, everything. They're leading themselves. And it's the things you need to unlearn. So for me, a lot of it was the upbringing that I had to kind of unlearn some of those default behaviours that had kept me safe when I'd been growing up. But for women that have had a really great childhood, there's still a lot of social conditioning. So my daughter's just had a baby, so I have a granddaughter, and it's my only daughter and her first baby, so it's wonderful. And of course, I've been looking for clothes, and a lot of the girl clothes are very pretty, flowery, with unicorns on and princesses and fairies and things like that. All very nice and nothing wrong with that. But I'm totally into Jurassic Park and dinosaurs. So I wanted to get something with a dinosaur on it. And the only way I could do that was to buy what was typically a boy's outfit with a dinosaur on it. And you look at the boys' stuff and it's about adventure and boldness and fearlessness. And the girls are kind of like, let's look pretty. And I think there's nothing wrong with that, but girls also want to be bold. And we kind of learned this thing. And I did buy the outfit with the dinosaur on and said to my daughter, I'm sorry, it's mainly Bloomshot. I don't care. It doesn't matter. She's not going to know. And it looks cute. Let's put her in it. But we have that conditioning in so many ways. So it's about unlearning that. What do you need to unlearn? And my answer is actually really that believing that your worth comes not from overgiving. It's not about doing more. It's about choosing more deliberately and reclaiming really what matters to you.
Thank you so much, Jackie. It was such a pleasure to have you.
I've loved it. Thank you. Such great questions.